Imagine being able to read people like open books, influence their decisions without them ever realizing it, and protect yourself from those who use psychological tricks to control others. Sounds like fiction, doesn't it? But it's not. Welcome to the hidden world of dark psychology, a world where the mind becomes the battlefield, and understanding human behavior gives you the upper hand. In this summary of dark psychology, Secrets and Manipulation by Amy Brown, we'll dive into the unseen forces that shape influence, manipulation, persuasion, and control. Whether you want to recognize when you're being manipulated or simply learn how to protect your own mind, this video will uncover every chapter, step by step. Amy Brown opens her book by introducing dark psychology as the study of how the human mind can be exploited, not just for harm, but to understand and defend against manipulation. She explains that dark psychology explores mind reading, mind control, and deception, activities we often think of as unethical, but which happen around us every day, from marketing and politics to relationships and leadership. The introduction sets the tone. This book is not just about how to control others, but also how to defend yourself from being controlled. Chapter 1. What is dark psychology? Amy Brown begins by unveiling a powerful truth: that success, influence, and control in life are often tied not to luck or intelligence, but to the understanding of how the human mind can be influenced. Dark psychology, she explains, is the study of how people use psychological principles to manipulate, persuade, and control others, either for personal gain or protection. Importantly, she emphasizes that these tools are neutral. They can be used for ethical persuasion or harmful control, depending on intention. Amy supports her argument with historical experiments that expose the depth of psychological influence. One striking example is the 1939 orphan study, in which two groups of children were raised in drastically different emotional environments. The orphans raised in positive, supportive surroundings developed better speech and confidence, while those subjected to negativity and hostility regressed and suffered greater speech impediments. This study, she explains, demonstrates how profoundly our social environment shapes thought and behavior, a core element of manipulation. She also introduces the bystander effect, showing how people often freeze or fail to help when others are present, assuming someone else will intervene. Manipulators understand this passive human tendency and exploit it, whether in leadership, marketing, or personal relationships, by directing group behavior or controlling emotional responses. Amy concludes that dark psychology isn't about turning evil. It's about understanding how influence works so that you can both protect yourself and ethically guide others. To master it, one must first see manipulation not as good or bad, but as a powerful, ever-present force. Chapter 2. Secrets and Strategies of Dark Psychology. In this chapter, Amy reveals the tactical side of dark psychology, how persuasion, mind control, and emotional influence actually work. The first key, she says, is state control, mastering your emotions before trying to influence others. If you lose control of your emotions, others can easily influence or manipulate you. She introduces the concept of mirror neurons, which are brain cells that cause us to mirror the emotions and actions of people we observe. When someone smiles or becomes angry, our own neurons simulate that feeling subconsciously. This is why emotions are contagious. A true manipulator understands this mechanism and can remain emotionally neutral, choosing which emotions to display in order to guide others' responses. Amy then describes anchoring, a method to deliberately trigger specific emotions on command. For example, by recalling a powerful memory of confidence before entering a negotiation, you can anchor that emotion to your body language and tone, projecting authority and calmness. Through practice, you learn to switch emotional states instantly, a vital skill in persuasion. Next comes perceptual sharpness, the ability to notice micro details, subtle body shifts, tonal changes, eye movement, hesitation, and word choice. Combined with active listening, this skill lets you uncover what someone truly feels, even when they hide it. Manipulators rely on this awareness to predict reactions and subtly steer conversations. Amy emphasizes that these techniques are not inherently immoral. They become dangerous only when used to exploit rather than to understand. She closes the chapter by reminding readers that influence begins not with words, but with presence. Your ability to observe, adapt, and control your emotional state determines how powerfully you can affect others. Chapter 3. The Essence of Dark Psychology. Amy shifts the focus to human nature itself, the source of our darker instincts. She defines dark psychology as both a study of deviant behavior and an exploration of the shadow side that exists in every human being. Within us all, she explains, lies the potential for manipulation, deceit, and cruelty. Not because we are inherently evil, but because these traits evolved as survival mechanisms. She explores how society defines morality, pointing out that laws and ethics are often shaped by those in power. What one culture condemns, another may celebrate. This moral relativism shows how the line between good and bad behavior is fluid. For instance, soldiers killing in war are seen as heroes, while individuals committing similar acts outside that context are criminals. The context defines morality, not the act itself. Amy argues that understanding this duality is essential to mastering dark psychology. Suppressing the dark side doesn't make it disappear. It makes it unconscious and therefore more dangerous. Recognizing one's darker impulses allows control, not chaos. The goal is not to deny manipulation and aggression, but to channel them ethically for protection and progress. She concludes with a reflection on survivalism, the instinct that drives people to dominate, deceive, or control when resources or power are at stake. Understanding this survival instinct helps explain not only individual manipulation, but also how societies, corporations, and governments operate in the shadows of influence. Chapter 4. The Basics of Covert Emotional Manipulation. In this pivotal chapter, Amy uncovers the subtle art of covert manipulation, influencing others without their conscious awareness. Unlike overt control, covert manipulation works through emotional cues, language patterns, and psychological conditioning. She identifies several key methods: propaganda, neurolinguistic programming, NLP, and pickup artist PUA techniques. All share one goal: bypassing the logical mind and appealing directly to the subconscious. Manipulators begin by establishing rapport through flattery, mirroring, or shared experiences. Once trust is built, they slowly redirect perception and emotion using carefully chosen words, tone, and body language. Amy reveals that the key to covert influence is storytelling. When people hear stories, their critical thinking relaxes, and their subconscious absorbs suggestions wrapped in emotion. Phrases like imagine if or what would it feel like if invite the listener's imagination to take over, temporarily switching off rational defenses. She also discusses the use of metaphors and emotional anchoring in persuasion. By linking ideas to powerful feelings, a manipulator can alter a person's mindset or decision-making process without direct commands. Amy warns that these techniques can be extremely powerful, which is why learning them is equally about self-defense. Once you recognize covert manipulation, you can resist it and think critically. Chapter 5. Analyzing Dark Psychology. In this analytical chapter, Amy dissects the mindset of manipulators. She describes the psychological profiles of narcissists, sociopaths, and emotional predators, individuals who use others as tools to achieve their desires. Narcissists crave admiration, sociopaths lack empathy, and emotional predators feed off control. Amy reveals how these personalities exploit human emotions like empathy and guilt. They gaslight, distort reality, and make you question your perception of truth. She breaks down classic manipulation patterns: love bombing, guilt tripping, silent treatment, and playing the victim, all designed to wear down resistance. Her advice: awareness is protection. The moment you can label a manipulative tactic, its power begins to fade. Logical thinking and emotional detachment break the control cycle. Amy insists that learning to spot manipulation isn't about paranoia. It's about empowerment through knowledge. Chapter 6. The Art of Manipulation. This chapter exposes the structured techniques manipulators use to steer behavior. Amy lists 10 major manipulation tactics, explaining how they operate on emotional and cognitive levels. 1. Steering attention, redirecting focus to control perception. 2. Problem reaction solution cycle, creating a crisis, provoking fear, then presenting the manipulator's desired solution. 3. Gradual change, introducing small shifts over time so the victim never notices transformation. 4. Postponement of change, delaying actions until resistance weakens. 5. Simplifying language, using basic or emotional language to reduce critical thinking. 6. Replacing feelings with emotions, encouraging impulsive emotional responses instead of rational reflection. 7. Fostering ignorance, keeping people uninformed or distracted. 8. Propagating mediocrity, normalizing low effort or compliance. 9. Guilt conditioning, making resistance seem morally wrong. 10. Deep psychological insight, knowing people's fears and desires better than they do. Amy warns that these strategies are not confined to individual manipulators. They're used by governments, corporations, and media outlets to shape opinion and control behavior. The antidote, she says, is critical awareness. By recognizing the patterns, you regain agency over your own decisions. Chapter 7. Hypnosis and Dark Psychology. Amy turns to one of the most intriguing and misunderstood aspects of influence: hypnosis. She explains that hypnosis is not mind control in the Hollywood sense, but rather focused suggestion, guiding the subconscious into a receptive state. She distinguishes between traditional hypnosis, Ericksonian hypnosis, and NLP hypnosis. Traditional hypnosis uses repetition and rhythm to relax the subject. Ericksonian hypnosis uses storytelling and metaphor, while NLP-based hypnosis integrates linguistic patterns to create behavioral shifts. Amy also explores self-hypnosis, where individuals use visualization and affirmations to reprogram their habits and thoughts. She compares it with stage hypnosis, which is more about entertainment than therapy. The chapter concludes with insights into subliminal messaging, subtle cues embedded in sound, video, or imagery that influence behavior without awareness. While these tools can be misused, Amy stresses their positive potential. Self-hypnosis can enhance focus, break addictions, and improve confidence. The key difference, she explains, lies in consent. Ethical use empowers, while manipulation exploits. The mind, she reminds us, is both the strongest shield and the most fragile weapon. Chapter 8. The Art of Persuasion and Dark Psychology. Amy begins this chapter by emphasizing that persuasion is not about domination. It's about guiding decisions and shaping perceptions. Unlike manipulation, persuasion operates within awareness, allowing people to make choices they believe are their own. Yet, as Amy explains, the boundary between persuasion and manipulation is razor thin, and understanding the mechanisms of persuasion is essential to resisting its darker use. She introduces key principles drawn from social psychology: reciprocity, scarcity, authority, social proof, liking, and commitment consistency. These are the 6 universal laws of influence, popularized by Robert Cialdini, but weaponized in dark psychology. For instance, the reciprocity principle makes us feel obligated to return favors. A manipulator might use this by offering false kindness to bind us emotionally. Scarcity works by convincing us that something is rare or limited, creating urgency and clouding judgment. Meanwhile, authority uses perceived expertise to silence skepticism, from fake doctors endorsing products to charismatic leaders demanding loyalty. Amy goes deeper into the art of emotional appeal. Logical arguments rarely persuade on their own. Emotion does. Manipulators exploit this by aligning their message with desires, fears, or identity. For example, in marketing, companies associate their brand with belonging or success, making rejection of the product feel like rejection of one's identity. She also discusses framing, the way information is presented to influence perception. The same fact can feel positive or negative depending on framing. 90% success rate versus 10% failure rate. Finally, Amy shares practical defenses. Pause before responding, question urgency, verify authority, and be aware of emotional triggers. Persuasion, when understood, becomes a shield instead of a trap. Chapter 9. The Art of Deception and Dark Psychology. Amy delves into deception, the deliberate distortion of truth, and how it underpins nearly every form of manipulation. She explains that deception can be verbal, nonverbal, or contextual, and it thrives on one universal bias. Humans want to believe in certainty and trust. She explores why people lie: self-preservation, fear, personal gain, or avoidance of punishment. The most dangerous liars, however, are those who lie to control narratives. Amy categorizes deception into 3 levels: white lies, social survival; strategic deception, self-interest; and malicious deception, psychological domination. The last is used by manipulators and abusers to rewrite reality and maintain power. To detect deception, Amy provides psychological cues: inconsistencies between words and body language, micro-expressions that flicker briefly on the face, and unnatural timing or phrasing. A liar may pause before responding, repeat the question to buy time, or use excessive detail to appear convincing. In contrast, truthful individuals tend to recall events naturally and maintain steady eye contact. Amy cautions that deception detection is not foolproof. Skilled deceivers rehearse emotions and mimic sincerity. Instead of seeking absolute proof, she advises cultivating intuition. When something feels off, it often is. The key is not confrontation, but quiet observation. Chapter 10. Protecting yourself from emotional manipulation. This chapter serves as a self-defense guide for the mind. Amy begins by asserting that emotional manipulators only succeed when they exploit weakness, dependency, fear, or lack of awareness. To break their hold, one must strengthen internal boundaries and emotional intelligence. She introduces a 5-step process of protection. 1. Recognition. Learn to identify manipulation patterns such as guilt tripping, gaslighting, and flattery. 2. Emotional detachment. Train yourself not to react immediately. Emotional neutrality dissolves a manipulator's power. 3. Boundary setting. Clearly define what behavior you will and will not tolerate, and enforce consequences. 4. Verbal assertion. Speak calmly and firmly. For example, I understand your point, but my decision stands. 5. Self-reliance. Cultivate a sense of purpose and independence so that validation doesn't depend on others. Amy also advises practicing self-talk, the inner dialogue that shapes resilience. Replace victim language, "I can't believe they did this to me," with empowered language, "I choose not to let this control me." Meditation, journaling, and surrounding yourself with emotionally healthy people can further strengthen mental armor. In her closing remarks, she reminds readers that awareness transforms manipulation into transparency. Once you can see the strings, the puppet show loses its power. Chapter 11. The Art of People Reading. Amy explores one of the most valuable skills in both dark and defensive psychology: the ability to read people accurately. Understanding others' emotions, motives, and intentions allows you to predict behavior and respond strategically. She breaks this skill into 3 domains: body language, tone and speech patterns, and microexpressions. Body language includes posture, gestures, and proximity. For instance, crossed arms may signal defensiveness, while open posture indicates comfort. Tone reveals confidence, anxiety, or deception, often more than words themselves. Microexpressions, tiny facial movements lasting less than a second, reveal suppressed emotions such as anger, guilt, or contempt. Amy highlights that manipulators are masters at reading others, using this knowledge to exploit weaknesses. But for the ethical observer, people reading is a tool of understanding. She encourages readers to observe without judgment, to notice patterns rather than isolated gestures. For example, a person who avoids eye contact once may be shy, but someone who consistently avoids it while contradicting themselves might be hiding something. She concludes by stating that reading people is less about catching lies and more about perceiving truth, about connecting with authenticity in a world full of facades. Chapter 12. How to Deceive Others Around You. This controversial chapter examines deception from the manipulator's point of view, not to encourage deceit, but to reveal how deceivers think and act. Amy begins by explaining that deception relies on three pillars: control of emotion, control of expression, and control of narrative. A skilled deceiver, she explains, can suppress emotional leakage, maintain relaxed body language, and deliver lies with confidence. They use vague statements, plausible deniability, and selective truth to maintain credibility. Amy breaks down their strategies, mixing truth with lies to create confusion, mirroring emotions to seem empathetic, and using humor or distraction to deflect suspicion. She also describes emotional masking, where a manipulator fakes vulnerability or sorrow to appear trustworthy. By understanding these tactics, readers can identify when someone's empathy or sincerity is rehearsed. Amy ends the chapter by warning that deception is unsustainable. While it may offer short-term advantage, it erodes trust and corrodes the self. To understand deception is to recognize both its power and its cost. Chapter 13. How to Recognize Manipulation Against You. Amy dedicates this chapter to deepening awareness of real-world manipulation. She outlines common signs: feeling drained or guilty after interactions, frequently doubting your memory or judgment, being pressured into quick decisions, experiencing shifting goalposts or double standards. She explains that manipulators often isolate their targets, emotionally, mentally, or socially, making them dependent on approval. They may use love bombing to create attachment, then withdraw affection to trigger anxiety. Over time, this push-pull dynamic erodes confidence and fosters obedience. Amy provides recovery strategies: rebuild self-esteem through small acts of autonomy, reconnect with supportive people, and reaffirm your reality through journaling. Most importantly, she insists that recognizing manipulation is not weakness, it's awakening. Once awareness dawns, you can never again be controlled in the same way. Chapter 14. Brainwashing and Mind Control. The final chapter explores the extreme end of dark psychology: brainwashing and mind control. Amy describes it as a systematic process of breaking down an individual's identity and replacing it with another, used by cults, totalitarian regimes, and abusive relationships. She explains the psychological stages of brainwashing. 1. Isolation, cutting off the victim from external influences. 2. Information control, limiting access to alternative viewpoints. 3. Emotional exhaustion, repetition, fear, and sleep deprivation weaken resistance. 4. Indoctrination, feeding a new belief system and rewarding compliance. 5. Total submission. The victim internalizes the manipulator's worldview as their own. Amy parallels this with real-world examples, from cult leaders like Jim Jones to corporate environments where loyalty is manufactured through fear and reward. The terrifying truth, she says, is that brainwashing doesn't always look sinister. It can happen gradually through social pressure and emotional conditioning. She concludes the book with methods of defense: maintain curiosity, diversify information sources, nurture independent thinking, and question absolute authority. Awareness, once again, is liberation. The mind is the ultimate fortress, but only if you guard its gates. Amy Brown closes the book by reminding readers that knowledge of dark psychology isn't about exploiting others. It's about empowerment. Understanding manipulation protects you from falling prey to it. Awareness is the shield. Emotional intelligence is the sword. In a world where influence is constant, from social media to marketing to personal interactions, mastering the mind means mastering your destiny.